Good morning, everybody, and welcome to our Getting Paid webinar in conjunction with the Chichester Chamber of Commerce and Industry. My name is Andre, and I am the practice manager here at Rowden's Chartered Accountants, and I will be your moderator for today. If you just can go to the next slide there for us, please, Penny. We are all familiar basically with the Zoom environment, but most importantly, if we can go and focus on the Q&A button, if you have any questions, please let those or put those basically the questions in there, and we can go and answer that a little bit later on in the webinar. But then now let me hand over to our presenter. Welcome, Penny Rowden.
Thank you, Andre, and thank you everyone for making the time to listen in to this important webinar. We appreciate that these are still difficult times with great uncertainty and concern for many businesses as they grapple with the lasting effects of Brexit, the pandemic, and now the war in Ukraine. Inflation is the highest it's been for many years, and energy costs are impacting everything. So we want you to know that we're here for you to give you whatever support we can to get you through these difficult times. A frightening statistic is that over 60% of small businesses fail within their first 3 years, and this is generally due to poor cash flow and business owners not appreciating how important their numbers are. It is why we so strongly recommend that our clients, as an absolute minimum, use a combination of Dext and Xero as the basis of their bookkeeping. Of course, despite what the adverts tell you, the old maxim, GIGO, garbage in, garbage out, will always hold true if the user of the software doesn't understand what they're doing. So we look to support our clients either by training them on using the software correctly, which can be coupled with a regular checking service to identify issues, or by providing the bookkeeping ourselves. Accurate bookkeeping is the bedrock of a successful business, so it is crucial that the bookkeeping is taken extremely seriously. Once that is in place, then business owners can not only see how their business is doing from day to day, but can also make sound financial decisions based on meaningful data. Again, this is where we can help by advising on business planning, cash flow management, forecasting, and tax planning, as well as business systems advice to ensure that the business continues to thrive and deliver the success the owners and their team are looking for. Our core purpose at Rowden's is achieving success together. And in this webinar, we're going to focus on getting paid, as good cash flow is intrinsic to business viability and therefore success. So with this core purpose in mind, we're here to share with you practical things you can do to minimize the downside on your cash flow at this time. Before we kick off, I just wanted to give you a thought for the day. So when a recession does materialize, many experts agree that ready cash is the oxygen that every small business owner requires to survive. So I think, yeah, that's sorry, I was just checking whether I just said what I wanted to say there. So I'm just going to go through the agenda for today. So first of all, we're going to look at the required mindsets in these difficult times. We're then going to look at your debtors system while working from home, or obviously if you're in the office now as well. And then lessons that we can take into the future, support available in the meantime, and your next steps, and then we'll take questions. And please do take notes and submit questions, because often the value in these webinars is actually the chat that happens afterwards. So with our thought for the day in mind, that you should never take your eye off the cash flow. And before we talk about strategies you can adopt, let's talk about 3 mindsets you need to have. First of all, you must be empathetic. You must approach your debtor management with backbone and heart. And it is okay to sell in these times, so long as you're solving problems for your customers that they have right now. And then consider, ask them how they're coping, ask them how their business is going, and consider the loyalty that they've shown you, and give your customers options about how they pay you. It isn't just as simple as saying, all right, oxygen mask on me, the customer must pay or we won't help. You know, we've heard some horror stories of businesses who are stopping credit and ramping up their debt collecting without any thought for how their customers are coping. So before we work out the best way to keep the cash flow going, we do need a framework. So look at that that we've got on the screen there, and treat that as your framework for how you're going to actually cope with looking after your debtors. Okay. So as long as we're being empathetic and giving clients choices, then we can talk about how we're going to get paid. And a useful mindset here is remembering to have backbone and heart. You can have both. So backbone is sharing that you're running a business too, and you need the cash flow. Okay, it is okay to be paid for the value you provide. You're running a business, and that is equally challenged in these times, or you know, you're always in the same position as your customer as well. But with your heart, if you have a purpose statement, we do recommend that you do something sort of like your business mantra, the thing that it goes right to the heart of why you're running your business and what you're doing. So link that back, and then consider all options for payment, and be flexible and considerate in your approach. The final mindset in these times, especially if you're a service provider, is that it is okay to sell. So long as your product or service is solving a problem for your customers, and so long as you're going to be paid for the work that you do. The spin cycle is a line of questions, starting with situation questions, then moving to problem questions. So let's use a light-hearted example of a hairdresser who's talking to clients who feel that they should be cutting back on haircuts and beauty treatments because their electricity's gone up or whatever. So they're trying to cut out on those type of things. So for the situation, you might ask questions like, how are you coping with being at home right now? Are you spending a lot of time on FaceTime, Zoom, or other calls with video on? So the problem questions might be something like, how do you feel that every day most probably is starting to feel like a bad hair day? And then your impact questions can be, how do you think you're going to be feeling in a month from now? You don't have that beauty treatment or haircut or whatever. So then your next steps questions will be, I know we can't be certain when this will be over, but should we book you in for a full makeover or a haircut in 3 weeks' time? I'm just having a bit of fun here, but what's important is that it is absolutely okay to sell, so long as you link your offering as a way of solving a current problem for your customers. So have a think about that spin cycle and see how that you can sort of work your way around it. As it's a useful technique there, I think. So then we can talk about your debtors system. And so firstly, I'll talk about best practice, and then I'll share a guide and some scripts, and then I'll talk some more about credit control processes. Essentially, nothing should change when you're looking at debtors. Just dial up your empathy, particularly if times are difficult. So by engaging more with your customers around their particular circumstances, you can tweak your processes just for the customers who are going to struggle. Remember that not all of your customers are at great risk here. The current situation should not give them an excuse not to pay you. You've done the work or supplied the product, you're running a business, and you need to be paid. You should be up to date with your invoicing. If not, this is going to need to be your top priority, or your customers simply won't know how much to pay. Really important to remember to invoice at the minute you've done the work, when the customer is at the peak of sort of satisfaction of what you've just done. You leave it too much later and they'll have completely forgotten, and then they'll start to think about it as a cost and not value. So always get your invoicing done quickly. And best practice credit control is that you have great guidance notes for team members responsible for your credit control and debt collecting, things like flowcharts, scripts and templates. And we'll show you these shortly as we put together a package on this for you. Obviously, there are also, if you're using Xero, then Xero has its own automated credit chasing as well, or debt collection. And then we can also introduce you to other software as well that's a bit more sophisticated, that Xero can help you automate a lot of this. And then you can just use people to do the final bits of the chasing, because often your customers will just have, the invoice will have got lost in their email system or whatever, so they just need a quick reminder and they'll pay. But then for somebody who's having more difficulty, you can talk to them separately. But sort of generally many problems with debtors come about because we've not put great systems in place around giving credit in the first place. And then we can have a chat about credit checks and maybe outsourcing your credit management as well in a minute. So here's a snippet of the guide and credit control scripts that we've put together. We're happy to share this with you at no cost off the back of this webinar. These were originally written during the first COVID lockdown, but can be adapted for the current circumstances. So just let us know if you'd like a copy of these, and then we can send them out to you after the webinar. So it's important to remember that credit control is not just about following up your debtors. It's a complete system from when you take a customer on through to when they pay you for the work that you've done for them. It is a good idea to outsource your credit management if you're having a lot of difficulty and you've got a lot of old debts to chase up. It means they can be more independent. It takes the emotion out of it, and generally you can just get it done. The other thing too is that it does free up your time as well, so that you can be focusing on other things which could be more important to you. But obviously you could outsource it, or you could use your own admin people or whatever. And it is essential that you build a relationship with the outsourcer, if that's what you're going to do, so that they can understand your core values, your style of communication, and the language that you use as well. So it does seem like it's coming from you. But if you do use outsourcing, it's not an ambulance at the bottom of the cliff. In the current climate, you can't just suddenly outsource credit management for customers who are going to really struggle in these difficult times, as this could cause brand damage for you and the credit controller, and not to mention waste a lot of time and of course money as well. So it's why we've developed some content that you can use, as we showed you just now. We can also work with you on your cash flow and give you a cash flow management coaching service as well, as a great way to drill down even further to make sure you have the best systems in place to free up your cash flow. So here's who we recommend that you can contact for credit checks for new customers. So we've partnered with software called Satago, and actually Satago does three things, which makes it a very interesting piece of software and very useful to companies. And so Satago will do the more sophisticated credit chasing sort of for you, so invoice chasing if you like, so that you can send layers of emails out to clients at sort of with different levels of sternness, if you like, about collecting the debt, and they can be set to go out automatically and look like they've come from you and come from a person. The other thing that it does over and above what Xero does is that it actually, you can issue a very nice thank you letter. So when somebody pays and you match that payment in your Xero to the invoice, then the following day Satago will send out a very nice little thank you email completely automatically. And we use Satago ourselves, and excuse me, we also find that clients will often just email us back saying, oh, it's a pleasure doing business with you, or thank you so much for your help, or whatever. And we haven't even known we've sent the the email out, the thank you email out. So it's just a really, really nice, easy way of doing things, and to automatically help your brand image and your relationships with your clients. Satago then also does credit checking for you as well. So you can, it sort of uses Credit Safe to do that. But again, it can do a light credit check, so you can have a quick check on anybody that you want to take on, or even your existing customers as well, if you're concerned about them. Because obviously there's no point taking on somebody who's going to have, going to have very poor credit and leave you with bad debts. So you can do a sort of a very brief, quick credit check, and then you can also do a much more detailed credit search on them as well. So that can be very useful. And then the other thing that Satago does is invoice financing as well. And we can talk about that a little bit later. But that is that can also be very useful as well if you've got something that you need to fund quickly. And again, that can be, it integrates beautifully with Xero, so it's well worth looking at. And do have a chat with us if you're interested. And credit checking should be a standard part of your onboarding process, really. It is very important to know who you're actually dealing with. So, sorry, just going to move on to the next slide. So we've talked about best practice with your debtors and how to avoid working for people who can't pay you. So now's the time to talk about what you need to do going forward from here to maximise your own cash flow. So some of these concepts you may have heard before if you came to our business continuity planning webinar, but we can go through what we're going to talk about. So first of all, we'll talk about the cash conversion cycle, and then there's the business 101 cycle, the 7 causes of poor cash flow, getting runs on the board quickly, bank assistant, and then government support and tax considerations. Not too much of that left at the moment, but there are things, and obviously there's various grants and things like that that you can look at and see what's available to you as well. So let's move on. So one of the most important ways to improve your business is to shorten your cash conversion cycle. In other words, get your cash quicker. What's super important in times of crisis is that all businesses speed up their cash conversion cycle so that the economy keeps working. Paying your suppliers more slowly just creates problems for other businesses who most likely are suffering as much as you are. So let's take a look at a real example, a wholesaler. A wholesaler buys stock from suppliers and on average must pay the suppliers 45 days after buying the stock. The stock doesn't sell the moment it comes into the warehouse. Some stock sells quickly, other stock takes longer, and eventually some stock has to be discounted to get it to move at all. On average, stock is held for 60 days. When the stock is sold, credit terms are provided to customers, but a number of customers are not observing those credit terms. On average, it takes 60 days for customers to pay. So now we can calculate the cash conversion cycle. 60 days average stock holding, plus 60 days to get paid by customers, less 45 days credit provided by suppliers, equals 75 days to convert inputs to cash. So when we're in difficult times, we need to ensure that you have a plan in place to shorten this cash conversion cycle. This is a process we would recommend you do as part of your business planning. So using the numbers from your most recent management accounts, we can work out the above numbers and calculate your cash conversion cycle. From there, we can discuss with you how we can work together to shorten this cash cycle and free up more cash. For example, if your debtors are £50,000 and your turnover is £500,000 per annum, a 10-day reduction in your cash conversion cycle is worth £13,700 to you. That is cash that you can really do with. All of us can, can't we? So we recommend you incorporate a review of your cash conversion cycle as part of your business planning or forecasts, so as to free up as much cash flow as possible. We'll talk more about this shortly. So another area of focus to improve your cash flow needs to be on your business 101 cycle. As we often tell you, there's a massive difference between profit and cash. Profit is what you pay tax on. Cash is the oxygen your business needs to survive. What is so important here is that as well as improving your cash conversion cycle, you make plans to maximize your profit and at the same time finance your business correctly. Let's walk through this business 101 cycle. So starting at the top, as an owner, you introduce cash into the business to buy assets. You may also borrow cash to purchase assets. Those assets are used to generate a profit. How you increase profit is to improve revenue or sales, increase margin or efficiency, or trim overhead expenses. So now is a very good time to be looking closely at potential new revenue lines, new potential customers, maybe a pivot in your sales strategy, or what you can do to avoid losing existing customers. You could also be looking at working with, selling more to existing customers as well. And at the same time, you ought to be looking at how you can improve your margins via efficiency gains, better purchasing, reduction in errors and wastage, or simply discontinuing products or services that have a poor margin. Once you've derived your profit, you need to turn that into cash. Profitable businesses can and do go broke when times are difficult. The number of times we've seen people who just want to sell more, the minute life gets a bit difficult, they rush out and sell more. But because of the cash conversion cycle, this can actually make them go bust, because they don't. The selling then requires more cash to fund the stock, and so on and so forth. And if they're not getting sufficient cash, then boom, they've gone. So really, really important to be looking at that. So you need to be looking at how you can maximize your cash flow using strategies to get paid quicker, reduce stock or work in progress, or by negotiating better payment terms with your suppliers. Now is not the time to be slow or lenient on debt collection. We need the money to keep spinning around in the economy. Likewise, you need to be very careful about reordering stock. Can you operate with less stock, or are there items that are likely to be in short supply? Other areas to help improve your cash flow are through better terms with your financiers. Can you go on to interest only, for example, on some of your loans? So I'll cover more on that shortly. Likewise, there are many tax concessions available, perhaps not as much as there was through COVID, but you can still have a chat to us about them. And obviously you want to make sure that you access them as well. So part of our cash flow management coaching service involves a full review of each of these 7 causes of poor cash flow, so that together we can make up a plan to free as much cash as possible. We have extensive resources we can share with you throughout this process, so that you can implement the ideas with real power. And as you can see on the screen there, the 7 causes of poor cash flow. So you've got the accounts receivable process. So that's the people who are paying you money. Make sure that they pay you quickly enough. You've got the accounts payable process. Obviously, if we said in difficult times, everybody should try and pay. Oh, excuse me, I'm going to have to take a sip of water. Everyone's going to have to pay their suppliers as quickly as possible. But if you have poor cash flow, then you are better to try and get people to pay you quicker, and you try and delay paying your suppliers a bit to help that. Look at your stock and your work in progress process and see if you can hurry that along. And then you may have inappropriate debt to capital structure. So you've taken on too much finance, which you can't actually support. Your overheads are too high. Is there anything you can do to cut back there? I mean, for instance, during the pandemic, a lot of people actually moved out of offices because their team were working from home, so they've gone into smaller offices. So it's that sort of thing, but often you can actually have a look at your purchasing and see if you can get better deals with suppliers as well, and that can help to free up a lot of cash. Look at your gross profit margin as well. So that's really your sales less the cost of those sales. So are you making enough margin on your sales? And maybe you just aren't making sufficient sales, so you do need to look to increase sales, and perhaps look at where you are selling as well. So sometimes if you're, I don't know, saying doing big government contracts or something, they can be really slow to pay you. So you might be better off dealing with the smaller independent customers. I know we had clients who were, for instance, selling into Marks and Spencer and Boots and things, and they're and even actually Amazon, things like that, their charges can be very high, and their sort of payment terms absolutely crippling, and also demanding very, very large amounts of stock as well, which obviously the supplier has to fund, so that can actually be really crippling for a business as well. So sometimes getting these big contracts can be really quite a problem. Plus, that you're very reliant on them, so that if they form a major part of your sales and they then drop you, you're then scrabbling around trying to find other work. So it's important to make sure that your sales are very spread if you can. So how do we pull all this together in a meaningful way in our current climate and into the future? So we've already talked about potentially outsourcing credit management, but also I think there's a lot to be said about using the automatic chasing service as well, because people can be very just slow in paying just simply because they didn't see the invoice coming into into their emails. We all know what email inboxes are like. So, you know, then the human touch, I think, can work well, but you don't have to do it for everybody, just the few sort of poor payers. But if you do outsource the credit management, do be careful. You know, just make sure that there's no point in using somebody like that with customers who you know are really going to be highly unlikely to be able to pay you. So you might be better off to try and talk to them and set up some kind of payment terms, so at least you know you're going to get paid, even if it's not quite as quickly as you might want to, but it might then save a bad debt. And then also revise your terms of trade and proposals. Make sure you don't perpetuate poor practice into the future. Once again, we've got plenty of ideas we can share with you on a one-to-one basis as part of a cash flow management coaching service, because the strategies that you adopt here need to be tailored for your particular business. Also look at your billing process. Get customers onto repeating or automated invoicing where you can, so that you're never slow in getting your invoices out. Consider if it's possible to create contracts with your clients with more regular invoicing, e.g. a deposit on acceptance of a proposal, or interim invoicing or progress payments if appropriate. If you have additional or out of scope work, make sure you communicate that early and get an acceptance from your customer in advance of doing the work to avoid a complaint or invoice query or dispute after the work has been completed. Also check that you've revised your price list to ensure that the margins you expect are being preserved. A great way to do this is to back cost the last few jobs you've done to identify if the returns you're getting match what you expected when you issued your quote. Likewise, if you're in retail or hospitality, review your margins and pricing. With so much cloud-based technology, now is a great time to be looking at how you can use automation to free up your time and cash flow. As well as repeating invoices, consider how you can move your proposal or quoting process to a paperless and online option. And consider automatic invoice chasing, either by using Xero's own chasing function or something more sophisticated like Satago, which includes thank you emails as well as access to credit checking your customers. And last, by no means least, take a look at your management controls and procedures about spending and invoicing. For example, set limits around what stock or products can be ordered. Consider how you can reduce your levels of stock or improve your efficiency in operations. Whatever you do, don't keep working for customers who don't pay. You're running a business, and right now you need to reduce your risk wherever you can. Often one of the highest overheads in a business is interest costs to financiers like the bank or whatever. If you add the principal reductions required on loans as well, this can be a massive drain on the business. So here's a list of ways the bank or your other financiers could be able to help you. So if you need additional business bank assistance, then look at seeing if you can increase temporary overdraft facilities, review and extend trade credit, asset finance funding can be very useful, a loan repayment holiday, deferment of repayments or interest only terms, extension of term lending periods, short-term and hardship loans, potentially short-term mortgage holidays. That was certainly something that was available during lockdown and the sort of height of the pandemic. And then business credit card options as well, because that can be very useful. I mean, one of the things we do is that we use a capital on tap card, and that for a sort of an annual payment gives you 1% cash back on everything. So we try and, you know, pay all our suppliers where we can through, you know, particularly software companies and things, through credit cards. So we get nice, you know, nice little lump sum every so often for doing absolutely nothing. So and it works beautifully with Xero as well. So it's a great credit card to think about. So those are some things to think about. And then also part of your cash flow improvement, or maybe your business continuity plan, if that's what you're doing, or normal business planning, should be a discussion with your bank or the financiers about how they can help you. Where we're your accountants, then we can talk to you first about the best options for you to go to the bank with. We do also have access to a sort of platform with different loans as well. So we can also sort of help you with that. And then Satago, as we've said before, can also help with selective invoice discounting. So if you've got something you want to fund quickly and you need the funds very quickly, then they can look at taking on sort of selective invoices and then help you with that, so that you can get the cash up front on those invoices. It can be quite an expensive thing to do, but it's a really useful if you need short-term funds very quickly. Whereas obviously if you're trying to go through bank loans and things, then there's usually quite a performance to get it. And there is invoice financing as well, which the invoice financer can take on the whole debtor book, etc. But again, that can be quite expensive, and you can get quite, although it can be very useful, it can be quite hard to get out of as well. So it's basically horses for courses and what you need. Then we've got a slide in here for your business government support and tax consideration. The government is still being helpful in terms of giving time to pay. So if needed, it is well worth talking to HMRC and sorting that out. But other than that, I mean, there are, maybe some grants still available, but I think the best thing is to chat to us, and then we can update you on what the current position is. It's obviously during the pandemic, there was a whole host of things available, but so many of those have now stopped. So we've set out for you the mindsets that you need to have in these difficult times: to be empathetic, to have backbone and heart around debt collecting, and how to avoid shying away from selling. We've shared best practice about credit control and debt collection and showed you a guide and scripts that you can use. We covered how to free up as much cash flow as possible by looking closely at your cash flow conversion cycle and Business 101 models. We looked at the 7 causes of poor cash flow and how you can get runs on the board quickly to improve cash flow, including what support is available from the bank. And we shared in general terms what support is available from the government and other sources. But now it's essential that you decide what you're going to do. As we said before, clearly doing nothing is not an option. Now's the time to put the oxygen mask on yourself and make a plan to get through the current situation, if it's being a problem for you, or just generally, make sure that you are really looking and keeping an eye on your cash flow. And then part of that planning is to surround yourself with experts, and we're here to help you. So remember to focus on what you can do. Okay, so with this in mind, we've developed a guide to credit control and some detailed scripts for debtor management that you can have at no cost from us. And at the end of the webinar, please indicate whether you'd like a copy of these, or just email me on penny.rowden@rowdens-limited.co.uk, and we can get those to you. But then what we also want to share now is how we can help you even more. Okay, so as we've said before, we can and want to help you develop your business and ensure that you maintain a healthy cash flow. With all of our clients, our recommended strategy is to complete a business plan. Many of you are well on your way with this work with us. We've been receiving fantastic feedback about how helpful this process is. We are just investing in some new, very exciting software which integrates with Xero and will help you identify where you are now by reviewing the 7 key numbers that are crucial to your business, and will help you see what you could achieve. Part of this is an insight into your cash position and whether you would have sufficient funding to stay afloat for 3 months if something happened, like another lockdown or other disaster. More importantly, it can also highlight where you might be leaving money on the table, the impact of inflation, or improving your debt collection. Using the software, we can play with the figures so you can decide where you would like to get to, how much profit and cash you might need to fund, say, a new machine or a car or a holiday or school fees or whatever, really, whatever you're looking for, and help you create an action plan to achieve it. As part of this, we're planning free initial sessions with our clients so that you can see where you are now and what might be achievable. Not only will you get great insights into your figures, you'll also come away with some actions to get you going. For those clients who want a more detailed action plan and to work with us on a more regular basis to ensure that they achieve their goals, then we can chat about this at the initial session. We also do recommend that every business has a 12-month business plan, as well as a 90-day plan, as the 90-day planning should form part of the 12-month plan. This sets the direction for the business and will also be a foundation from which to build your cash flow improvement strategy. So the two options we recommend to complete a 12-month business plan are, first of all, to meet with us either online or in the office so that we can do this together, either as one session of up to 4 hours or so, or with 2 shorter sessions. We believe that combining your expertise with our expertise will result in a far better plan. The second option is that we share our free business continuity plan template, which was one that was developed sort of during the height of the COVID pandemic, when we were in sort of the first lockdown. But there's a template and guide, and we can share that with you so that you can complete first draft of the plan on your own, and then we can have an online meeting with you for 60 to 90 minutes to finalise the plan. This option suits people who feel comfortable preparing plans themselves and are not inundated with other things to do right now. The risk with this approach is that with everything else going on, you might not get round to actually doing the plan. We can also help you to complete a cash flow forecast. Many clients are using these forecasts as a basis to support finance applications to the bank, or just to keep a regular check on their cash and look at the future with their cash, make sure that they can fund what they want to do. And then, of course, you know, if you're the directors and owners of the business, you should be acting like a bank too, because if you've advanced money to your business, then you need to be sure that you'll get repaid by the business when the time comes. So preparing a cash flow forecast together allows us to share with you many ideas to improve your cash flow. I've mentioned during the webinar, we have a cash flow management coaching service as well that we can do with you. But to be honest, I think a lot of this can happen in looking at the sort of 7 key numbers and working with you on that. But we can offer you specialised coaching as well to really drill down and resolve some of the issues that you might be having with your cash flow. So next, really, whether anyone has any questions. So Andre, over to you. Do you have any questions?
Hi, Penny. Thank you very much, Bessie, for that. It was quite a comprehensive sort of webinar there for things. I had Bessie 2 questions basically coming immediately about, I think it's more or less basically around Citago. The first thing basically that we have there is, will Citago calculate late payment interest and statutory collection charges?
Yes, it can do. It certainly can do, and that can be very interesting. And you have to be careful because you can only do it business to business. If you're dealing with the general public or consumers, then you shouldn't be charging them late payment interest. I think I'm right in saying that. Jonathan, I think you're on the call, so you can correct me if I'm wrong on that. But certainly for businesses, it can, and it will automatically do that for you and help you calculate that, and just add that to the collection requests. So that is a very useful thing that I actually forgot to mention to say there. Yeah.
Fantastic, thank you very much. The other one that we had there, again, like I said, I think it's around Citago and possibly Xero, is how do I go about getting reminders and chasing emails set up?
Right. Well, in the invoicing section of Xero, you can basically, there's something there that can send, it's called invoice reminders, and you can get that set up. They've got 3 versions of emails that you can send out, sort of escalating emails if you like, and you can set when they would like to be sent. You can amend them to say things in your own words. So if you're the sort of person that likes to say dear customer instead of hi customer, you can put that in, but you can also just make it sound like you, whether that's firm or jolly or whatever it is, and then you can sort of switch it on, and it will then automatically send those reminders out if the customer is late paying you. So you can set it to say 7 days after the due date, or 15 days, or whatever it is, and it can be useful. Of course, it's absolutely crucial that your bookkeeping is kept up to date, and that your your receipts from your customers are matched to their invoices, because if you don't do that, then you will be chasing clients or your customers for late payment of invoices when they have actually paid you. So sometimes people will put on the chasing email just to make sure that in case there's been a mistake or they are a bit slow or something, just to say if you've already paid us, so no thank you, but please let us know when you paid us so that we can check our systems or something like that. So so that can be good. And as a first port of call, I think that getting that set up in Xero is very good. One of the things I didn't mention was, of course, that if you have clients on repeating invoices and regular payments, then we can use the payment services that kind of that Xero links with, like Go Cardless or Stripe or PayPal, to actually have automatic collections on those invoices on the due date. And that is a really, really useful thing to do, as many of our clients will know. We use Go Cardless, and it just means that everybody knows where they are. From the customer's point of view, they don't have to worry about remembering to pay, go into their bank, make the payment. Standing orders aren't so good because obviously prices have to rise, and if a standing order is there, then the standing order will just carry on, and the invoice then is always only ever part paid, so you're then having to collect small amounts at a later date and try and get that sorted and everything. So it's far better to go on to direct debit, and the great joy of it with Xero is that it actually takes the amount due on the Xero invoice and then collects it automatically on the due date if that's what you've set up, and it also sends a reminder to the customer the day before to say that collection is going to be taken, so that it is it's very seamless and automatic, and it makes a huge difference on cash flow. But equally, you can offer credit card facilities so that your clients can pay you online through Stripe. And that can be really helpful as well. It's a bit more expensive than Go Cardless in terms of fees, but if a client wants to pay you by credit card, then that's so much better to do that and get paid early than have the cash tied up.
Fantastic. I think that's answered now sort of pretty much the third question that I had there as well, which was it's obviously now, I think this is now very important message to go and actually utilize things like payment services to go and make it as easy as possible for clients or customers to go and pay you through that as well. And I think Go Cardless is a very good tool to go and use for that, but definitely where it's more one-off clients, I think then, like I said, now things like Stripe or any of the other sort of payment services that's out there, it's also a very good useful tool to go and use. At the moment, there's no other further questions that's there for it, but I think basically just to follow up on what Penny just said there about the answer there to getting reminders and chasing emails set up. If at any point basically you struggle, do give us a call, and we are more than happy to go and help out with those. And especially if you think about moving to the Satago platform and everything else that goes around that with all the other services that they provide, please do give us a call and we can have a little bit of a chat through those and go and get that implemented for you. But Penny, I think that is it for the moment on questions. So over to you.
Lovely. Thank you very much. So thank you very much for taking the time to attend this webinar. We appreciate your time is very valuable, but we hope that we've given you plenty of ideas to think about and some clear options for how we can support you. Before we go, I thought I'd share this quote with you. When you show deep empathy towards others, their defensive energy goes down and their positive energy replaces it. That's when you get more creative in solving problems. And that's by Stephen Covey, who has he's written some great books and things. I definitely recommend looking at what he does. But I think that's great, that when you can get into a sort of what's the word, the right relationship with your debtors, even if you're going to have a difficult conversation, if you can really see it from their point of view, show them deep empathy, have a chat with them about it, then generally you'll be able to come up with some kind of solution in finding a way to get paid so that you don't both lose out effectively. So let's make sure we approach our own cash flow challenges with empathy, and and make sure that we have sufficient cash and sufficient oxygen for our businesses to move forward. So please do call us if we can help you in any way. And if you'd like to take up the free option and have a look at where you are now in your business and perhaps what you might be leaving on the table and how we can help you move forward, then do, because I think that's going to be a real game changer for many businesses. We're very, very excited about it. So thank you, and look forward to chatting with you soon. Okay, right then, bye.